Eagle, Idaho has earned the reputation of being one of the most desirable places to live up here in the Boise, Idaho area. This is where we live. We absolutely love it. But whenever I'm sharing that with people, every once in a while they're making that visit up here, and it's not super rare that after seeing everything that Eagle has to offer, they just kind of look at me and say, Chase, I know that you like living there. I know that's where you call home, but we just do not see the appeal. We don't think that it's quote unquote worth it. This is a huge thing because the hardest decision that you're going to make during this entire process is choosing what suburb of Boise, when you decide on the general area, what city are you actually going to choose to set up roots in? So yes, there are a ton of great things about living here in Eagle, but if it is not the best fit for you, do not waste your time looking at this. Let's identify one that's a little bit better. So in this video, I'm going to break down some of the biggest pros and cons of why people would choose Eagle, Idaho, or maybe why they wouldn't, all in the hopes that it helps guide you just one step further into, is this potentially the best place for us? Or again, should we narrow that focus in on a different area? And before we dive right in, I do want to remind you, I am a local agent up here in the area. So I call Eagle, Idaho home, but I also help people make the move up here every single day. So if you have any questions at all my information will be down below, and then make sure you hit that subscribe button. That way you're the first to know everything you need to know. But the first big pro that I talk to with people when they're looking here at Eagle, and it's one of the main reasons why we chose this as the place to call home, is just the overall vibe, the trees, the lushness, and the access to the outdoors and the natural beauty that Boise and this part of town have to offer. Boise is known as the city of trees, and if you have never been up here before, when you're flying in for the first time, you will see just how many trees are all across the city of Boise and some of those surrounding areas. But once you've been up here for a little bit, as you're driving through Kuna, Meridian, Nampa, you're exploring all these different parts of town, it'll probably pop up that, hey, city of trees, where the heck did all of these go? And that's just purely because the way that our geography is kind of laid out, there are going to be some very lush, mature areas that trees just thrive. Then there's going to be some that are a little bit more flat. They're really, really new developments, a lot of farmland, different vibes kind of all throughout the valley. If you like that lush tree-lined street feel, you're really going to find that in Boise itself and then over in Eagle. Those are going to be the two places that have it just much more than the rest of town. So from an aesthetic purpose, that was a big reason why we chose it here, and I think it's a big pro. But of course, also the access to the outdoors, that is one of the things that I think Eagle excels at. You're going to be sandwiched right between the Boise River and then the foothills of Eagle and Boise. So of course, this is going to give you access to the greenbelt. You can go down to the river, kayak, fish, you can go floating. There are all sorts of fun activities that you can do. And then if you want to go north, you can get into the foothills, go hiking, 80 Eagle Bike Park. You can go up there, mountain biking, dirt biking, all of the fun stuff there. There are some great parks. Eagle itself is just located in a great part of town for you to get out and explore the outdoors. And then to top it all off, you're closer to Highway 55, which allows you to escape right out of town if you want to get up to the Sawtooths, Boise National Forest, or some more of those actual outdoor experiences a little bit more out of town. I do want to point out that some of the neighborhoods here, we have a lot of newer communities. We have a lot of master plan kind of developments. Some of them are set up in a way that they are extremely walkable. You can go, there's walking paths, places to take your dogs, all sorts of stuff. Some of them are great for bikeability to downtown, the greenbelt, etc. But there are also a ton that are not set up for this at all. So if that's something that's important to you, make sure that you're keeping an eye on that throughout your search. But hopping over to the first con, it's the one that everybody thinks about when we're talking about Eagle, Idaho. So let's just get it out of the way. And it's just that the home prices here in Eagle are going to be a lot more expensive than anywhere else around town. As of right now, filming this video, the median home price here in Eagle is just around $750,000. Whereas if you compare that to, let's use Ada County, kind of Boise, Meridian, Eagle, Star, Kuna, the median home price there is going to be $540,000. And then if you use the median home price out in Canyon County, so Nampa, parts of Star, Caldwell, Middleton, you're going to have a median home price closer to $430,000. So when you start to look at this, Eagle is going to be a lot more expensive than the majority of places around town. And there are a few reasons for this, but you have to know that your budget just is not going to stretch anywhere near as far here. If you take the same home in Eagle, throw it into Meridian, throw it into Nampa, Caldwell, you're going to see that there's a pretty drastic difference there. Now, one quick pro that kind of comes out of this is that your tax rate or your levy code here in Eagle is going to be amongst some of the lowest in the entire Treasure Valley. As of filming this, roughly for property taxes, you're going to be paying around 0.41%. So even though those home prices and those assessed property values are going to be higher, you're getting a little bit of a break quote unquote there, but you also get your homestead exemption. There's some things that you can do to kind of offset that bill. And then you also have to know that part of why that median home price is higher, and this is starting to spread a little bit more, the high-end uber luxury level homes down by the Boise River, some of the acreage out past kind of the northern edge of Eagle. This is one of the hot spots of the luxury housing market here in the entire Treasure Valley. So that also does kind of start to bring it up when you're selling $3, $4, $5, $6 million homes. Obviously, that's going to bring that median price up. But on the whole, I will be honest, it is more expensive here. You might hear that and be like, okay, why the heck would anybody choose to live over there? Yes, you have access to the green belt. Yes, you have access to the outdoors. It's beautiful, I'm sure. Why wouldn't people just drive 10 minutes from Meridian if they could really get that much more bang for their buck? And there are a few reasons here. One of the biggest ones is Eagle is just seen as a great place to raise a family. It has some of the lowest crime rates in the entire valley, both on the property and violent crime side. And then looking at the schools, kind of on greatschools.org as an example, both public and private, Eagle has some of the highest rated ones in the valley with a ton of 8, 9, 10 out of 10s. So you combine safety, really good schooling, you have the outdoor activities, you have a cute downtown, all of the pros here. If you're somebody that's at that family part of life, if you're relocating, looking for that best place to kind of start that next step, those are the things that can really bring it together and say, okay, Eagle's a good place to live. That is where we want to be. And of course, the more people see somewhere and they're like, that's where I want to be, one of the cons that comes with that is a lot of growth, a lot of development. And right now in Eagle, we're seeing a ton of traffic, congestion, and just what seems to be never-ending construction throughout our town. As of right now, as of filming this, we were just out towards downtown this weekend. Downtown Eagle is getting all sorts of renovations, new buildings, they're redoing some of the roads. There's all sorts of stuff going on down there, but that has led to a good portion of downtown Eagle being on detours. They're sending people every which way. One of the main grocery stores here in Eagle is the Albertsons there off Eagle and State, and that has been kind of closed down to one lane, making it a pain in the butt to get in and out of it for a little bit now. And that's just one example. We have got some crazy traffic going from Eagle. I talk about it a lot on the channel. Getting from here down to downtown Boise, it's a little bit further. You are separated. You're looking at 30 to 35 minutes, but it's a straight shot. You can take State Street, you can take Chinden. It's a pretty painless drive. But getting from Eagle over to I-84, for example, getting that north to south, that's where we run into a lot of congestion. So getting just from Eagle to Meridian, Linder Road and then Eagle Road, those are going to be your main two thoroughfares to get there. That's where you're going to see that things can get backed up a lot. Not only has that growth really led to all of this congestion, but it's also kind of started to take away some of that small town feel that people really liked about Eagle. We are seeing development everywhere. We are getting new little restaurant complexes, shopping areas, housing developments. Oh my goodness, Eagle has been new development central for the past few years. And as excited as I am for some of these things, we're finally getting a Chick-fil-A. Getting a Chick-fil-A definitely does take away from that small town Eagle, Idaho feel that people did fall in love with. You are still going to be able to find the flat, big green areas, a lot of that farmland, but it's not going to be everywhere the way that it used to be. That Highway 16 extension on the very west side of Eagle as you get into Star, that is really starting to kind of bump that development up. It is going to be crucial for everybody getting north to south. What I mentioned, you'll be able just to hop onto the highway, but as the highway starts to connect there, that's going to change things over here. So just know that there's a reason that the growth is happening. People do like it here, but you also have to know that you are here as the growth is coming. All of that to be said, one of the pros here, something that I do like, is some of this growth I think is giving us a nice balance of what was that kind of Eagle, Idaho small town feel, but with a solid mix of connection to nearby amenities and just that growing vibe of an exciting town. Eagle here is definitely still a smaller town in terms of population. Right now we have around 33,000 people living here in Eagle, and there's still some great small town local events and festivals throughout the year. We're gonna have Eagle Fun Days, Harvest Festival, we got the Eagle Saturday Market. There's still a lot of those components that do give it that sense of community, but as that growth has happened, people I don't think would consider it that small town anymore. So like I said, we're getting that Chick-fil-A. We're starting to get a little bit more of food and drink options. The brand new Lifetime Fitness is going to be opening its first Idaho location sometime within the next year. They're kind of finishing all of that renovation right now. That is going to be absolutely huge. And we've got some great local dining options in and around downtown Eagle. There are some great places that you need to stop. If you want any of those recommendations, just shoot me a text, shoot me an email. I will send you our full kind of area guide that breaks down all of the different different cities, but it'll break down Eagle in particular, show you some of those things to do, etc., give you a little bit of that starting point. But even with all of these options and how we're starting to get a little bit more, there have been things that are missing, which we'll get to here in a second. But the proximity to the other towns is one of the things that we did like about Eagle. You're a little bit separated from Boise, some of the hustle and bustle, but like I said, you're 30 minutes from downtown. If you want to go down there for a game, you want to grab a date night dinner, whatever it is, you're just about 10 to 15 minutes from Meridian. If you want to go to a grocery store in there, you need to get to Eagle Road, whatever, you're not extremely separated from the things that you're going to need. So for people like us that were a little bit more of homebodies, we don't need everything just outside our front door. This was something that we were willing to be okay with. We love our house, we love our neighborhood. We'll drive just a little bit more to get to the grocery store. And of course, you have to remember with the growth isn't going anywhere. So that is all as of right now, but there is more development coming as more and more people, as some of these roads and infrastructure projects start to get completed. You'll start to see some more of those services, restaurants, grocery stores, all of that start to creep out to the other portions of Eagle. We're on kind of the northwestern edge, and we've already seen over the last year, got a really good breakfast spot, Janet's Cafe, right across the street. One of the best coffee shops that we have here in the area finally opened up, and it has been a hit. All week, all day, it is just this massive line going out the door. Those are the kinds of things that you can see. There is a hunger for them here and there's a need, but we're going to start to see more and more of those pop up, which does lead directly into the next con. And I think you can kind of hear it between all of my words. But one of the cons here is you don't have the uber close proximity of the grocery stores, of the vast restaurant options, shopping, any of that stuff. You're going to have some great local options across the board. But if you do need to go out and actually shop, do that whole kind of shopping experience, you're probably going to end up at the Village of Meridian, downtown, Boise Town Square Mall. There are some nice little boutique shops in Eagle, but it's not going to have everything that you're looking for. And then grocery stores, we do have a Winco towards the eastern edge of Eagle. Then you're going to have an Albertsons right in downtown, but that's going to be it. So us being on the northwestern edge, we actually commute into Northwest Meridian to hit that Fred Meyer. That is the main place that we grocery shop. There's going to be a Costco right there. So yes, it's within 10 to 15 minutes, but you are technically living Eagle. And if we're in the middle of making dinner, whatever it might be, if we are just missing one ingredient, it is a little bit of a chore to have to go 10 to 15 minutes each way just to grab, crap, we forgot cinnamon. That would be great to have something just down the road a little bit closer. Hopefully that'll be something that comes in the future to just make life a little bit more convenient, but we're making it work. And then I mentioned that there are limited restaurant and dining options here. I think Eagle has a great food scene and it's continuing to grow, but one of the areas that it does definitely lack in is any sort of the nightlife component. If you want a place to go out on the weekends, you really want to go find that bar, you want to find a place to go out and have some fun, if that's your scene, you're not going to find it in Eagle. You're most likely going to have to head into downtown Boise, so just be ready for, if that's something that you do regularly, maybe it's not worth the commute. If it's something that you do just a couple times a year, maybe you can figure it out. And then to wrap it up, I have one more pro and con, the pro of which being that Eagle is, whether people agree with it or not, it is seen as that desirable zip code. Some people just really want to be in Eagle, Idaho for all sorts of different reasons, but it is the one area that kind of has that sense of status behind it. Whether that's something that you're looking for or not, that is something that exists, and it does help with your investment. Even as things kind of started to trend down a little bit a couple years back, as the entire valley started to correct, Eagle definitely had a correction, but it was much more stable than some of the other areas because at the end of the day, people just want to live here. Your values are going to hold pretty good. And then depending on what your budget is, what type of home you're looking for, one of the things that Eagle does on that investment side is if you're looking for that luxury home, if you want to spend $1.5, $2 million on a home in Eagle, it can be a little bit more of a growing investment because the Eagle luxury market is already here. This is where people have a need for that product. They're starting to see more and more of those homes come. The fact that Eagle already has that high-end luxury market, it just allows you to have a little bit more of a higher cap on what home prices will end up being. You can see the growth start to come. It's not crazy for a home to be worth $800,000-$900,000, getting up into the million price point. That's just something that's a little bit more normal over here. Whereas if you're buying in Kuna, for example, it's going to be a while until homes are going to start to get that expensive. So if you're buying $1 million home in Kuna, you're going to find something fantastic, but the odds of that getting up to 1.5 anytime soon, that's gonna be a little bit harder. And I will 100% admit that's a little bit more just anecdotal, but when we're shopping for homes with some clients, having $1 million home out in Kuna, the question always comes up, is there really $1 million home in Kuna? People are just ready for the higher price points in different parts of town. That's the overall thing I'm trying to get at. Now, with all of this comes into our final con though, and this is something that we see. This is something that still was a big thing when we moved here, and I definitely can't say that it doesn't exist, but it comes up with clients all the time. With all of that desirability, the sense of status that Eagle can give people who are looking for that, it also does come with a little bit of snootiness. The overall vibe that Eagle can have sometimes is kind of centered around money. It has that elite status feel, and people sometimes like you to know it. Now, I wouldn't say that this is anything that is absolutely insane, where if you just cannot stand this, Eagle is going to be the worst place ever. But if it's something that you're sensitive to and you just don't want to deal with, you're going to feel that in Eagle a lot more than Meridian, Nampa, etc. You're going to see a lot more high-end cars. You're going to have a little bit more of that keeping up with the Joneses, and just that overall feeling of entitlement sometimes with some of the people that like to make sure you know that. And we see some of these interesting people, is the way that I'll put it, in a few different areas. So one, HOAs here in Eagle, they're going to be very, very common. You are going to find them in almost every single community. There will be some that don't have them, but especially some of the higher end, some of those new construction communities, you're going to have them. Now, each HOA is going to be a little bit different, but Eagle is going to be one where you're going to have every once in a while people who are very, very into their HOA, and there's a little bit more sticklers. There's going to be neighborhoods where you'll see stories on the forums and such of people doing sidewalk chalk with their kids. It wasn't approved. Somebody has to go and take care of it. Just this year, we got our first HOA infraction. We put in a new plant a little bit too close to summer. It was starting to do fine. It got brown as it got really hot, and it was within days. We got a little letter, hey, you need to remove that shrub. Everything, this is part of why our communities are so pretty, but if you don't want to deal with some of that stuff, you're going to find it here just a little bit more. On that note, you're also going to notice the good old term of the Karens. You're going to have a lot of those here in Eagle. So you're going to see that through the HOA, but you're just going to run into it a little bit more in Eagle as you're out and about, as you're shopping. Those are something that you want to keep out for. And then for those of you, regardless of where you are on the political spectrum, you're going to notice here in Eagle that even though the entire Treasure Valley is really, really conservative, Eagle as a whole is going to be still pretty conservative, but it's going to be a little bit more centrist than some of the other areas around town. But something that you'll read and something that I've seen in my experience is some of the loudest, ultra conservative people, they tend to set up shop in Eagle. So with all of those HOAs, Karens, the ultra loud political people, you're going to find those in Eagle. But I will say the general vibe on a whole, the majority of people are absolutely fantastic. You just have to be ready for some of those more interesting people as you're out and about, and just know that most people are looking at them like they're a little bit crazy. Hopefully you can find some people that just aren't like that. Again, I want to reiterate, Eagle is a great place to live. There's a reason that we call it home, but I will also admit very, very quickly, this is not the perfect place. There are going to be things that just drive people out towards a different area, and that's okay. That's part of what makes our valley such a desirable place, is we've got a lot of those different towns with a different vibe in each one. So if you made it this far in the video, thank you so much for watching. All of my information is down below. If you have any questions, shoot me a text, shoot me an email. If you want to look at what some of those other towns have to offer, I'll send over that relocation guide, that area guide that breaks them all down. And if after hearing all of this, you still think that Eagle is the best place for you, that is even better. Let me know how I might be able to help and what that next step in your journey is. But for now, make sure you hit that subscribe button down below. That way you're the first to know everything you need to know about living up here in the Boise, Idaho area. Watch one of these videos that's popping up on the screen, and I'll see you all on the next one.